The New Zealand government has welcomed the establishment of diplomatic relations between the United States, Cook Islands and Niue. At the second US Pacific Summit in Washington this morning, President Joe Biden announced that the US recognizes them as sovereign and independent states. It's an announcement which the US Embassy in Aotearoa has labelled as historic. Lydia Lewis reports.
Niue and Cook Islands are celebrating today.
These milestones celebrate eras of change and demonstrate that with unshakable resolve and leadership, remarkable achievements are possible.
That's the way the Pacific Islands Forum chair and Cook Islands Prime Minister Mark Brown described President Joe Biden's announcements.
The United States is formally establishing diplomatic relations with the Cook Islands. And the real reason is we're both from Baltimore. That's a long story.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade says the establishment of these new diplomatic relations does not change the constitutional relationship Aotearoa New Zealand has with either the Cook Islands or Niue. That's a message echoed by Prime Minister Chris Hipkins.
That's the way the American system works. So in order to recognise those specific countries, the wording that they use is they recognise their sovereignty, but actually they also recognise through diplomatic channels the unique constitutional relationship that those countries have with New Zealand.
On top of talks about diplomatic ties, Joe Biden told Pacific leaders more than $20 million is being injected into climate assistance.
I want you to know I hear you. The people of the United States and around the world hear you. We hear your warnings of a rising sea and what they pose an existential threat to your nations. We hear your calls for reassurance that you never, never, never will lose your statehood or membership of the UN as a result of a climate crisis.
This days after the US was slammed by Pacific youth climate warrior Suluafi Brianna Fruin following the UN Climate Ambitions Summit.
Australia and the US were examples of countries that have not been moving at the same speed as which they've been talking.
In addition, President Biden announced the doubling of US Pacific exchange student spots. He says the US will also pay $5 million towards a fisheries and ocean science vessel, which will be used to manage the region's tuna resources and for ocean science research.